Morning.
Morning.
What I wanted to talk about this morning was kind of a continuation of what Pastor Manoj had spoken about and Reverend Denise had spoken about last week. The idea was that we begin our year with God and also living with God, we live joyfully. So I wanted to, I know that the readings might be not directly connected to the idea of joy, but they are actually, if you just bear with me for a few moments. When I was thinking about the topic of joy, I realized that I don't necessarily feel joy like every single moment. It's then I said, okay, well, this is a little dilemma. I'm supposed to talk about joy, but I don't actually always feel that. So then I had to step back and I began to think, well, what do I have to be joyful for? And then once I took it from that viewpoint, I began to realize there's a lot of things in my life that I have gratitude for. And very, very important things that are really life-changing, that have made the difference in the way I look at my life and my whole entire lineage and the future, the entire future. So I was just having a little talk with Dave Hunter. He's not here, okay, but he's from New Jersey. Anyway, a couple weeks ago at a restaurant, and we were talking about the situation of our church right now. And it came up in the conversation that when the Christian movement began 2,000 years ago, it's noted that Jesus said on the cross, it is finished. Now, if I was a disciple of Jesus and I was kneeling at the foot of the cross, and I saw the man who I thought was to be the king of the world, who was going to free Israel from Roman and Greek domination, and there he was, hanging on the cross, half naked, suffocating to death, bleeding to death. And then I heard him say, "It is finished." I probably would not be at the foot of the cross saying, "Yeah, we're victorious. We've totally got it now." Do you think that anybody standing at the foot of the cross who heard Jesus say, "It is finished," felt a rush of joy and accomplishment and success? No. You'll see very, very quickly that the disciples ran into the upper room and hid because they thought, "Yeah, it's finished. It's over. We're dead meat. It's over." That's how it looked back then. So they were up in the upper room, scared, waiting for the knock on the door, which would be the Roman centurions taking them away. And then what happened after that? They got the Holy Spirit and they went out to teach and share. But in the next 100 years, the next 200 years, Christians were living in the catacombs in Rome. They were living underground in fear. They were being fed to the lions in the Colosseum as entertainment for the Roman Empire. They were being burned at the stake as torches for the Roman wild parties. So I would ask then, did that church have any confidence and understanding of what Jesus had said, "It is finished"? The fact is that his movement, the movement that he had started, was really shaking, and they were not sure at all of their future. It looked like it was finished. That's what it looked like. But when Jesus spoke those words, that's not what he meant. He's not saying, "I've been defeated, it's all over." What he was saying is that I have established something in the timeline of history that will change the direction of history from this point on. I have done that. I have completed something that is really remarkable. No one in the world could have possibly understood it at that time. But he knew he had accomplished something. I would say the same thing is probably true of Moses when he left Egypt. And then we read the stories of the Jewish people in Egypt. They weren't excited. They said, "Why did you lead us out here? We want to go back. This is worse than it was in Egypt. I'd rather be a slave in Egypt than at least have food and water and a place to go home every night." So it didn't really seem that exciting to them. And also, In the history of the Jewish people, you will see that many nations tried to exterminate them as a race, wipe them off the face of the earth. But they still survived. So then, we look at the Jewish people now, and even here in America, I mean, it's known in the world, even in America, the diamond industry, the financial industries, the entertainment industries, the publication industry, so many things are run by Jewish people. They're very influential in society. Then we look at Christianity. 400 years after Jesus was crucified, the nation, the empire that crucified him, accepted him as their Messiah. And then they were connected to the rest of the world, and missionaries have gone out for the past 2,000 years preaching the word that Jesus gave. And the world has changed. And what I'm saying is that the people at the beginning of Jerusalem, the early Israelites and the early Christians, had no idea that something major had changed, that their leaders had accomplished something that would affect the world for 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years. So what I'm saying is that when Abanim said, "I have completed everything," I think a lot of my friends and people I know are wondering, where are we? What's happening? There's things that are happening that are very, very upsetting. Are we also headed for extinction and decline? But I think what we have to realize is what history tells us. What history tells us is that key people are sent in history, and they accomplish something at the end of their life, which no one necessarily at that time realizes they have done. You know what I'm saying? So Moses, with those struggling people in the desert, was able to build a worldwide sphere of influence that lasted for 3,000 years. Jesus, struggling in the very beginning with his followers being tortured for entertainment for 100 years, for 200 years, up to 300 years. But then the power, the thing that holds those two people together in my mind is the transforming power of the word that came through Moses, the transforming power of the word that came through Jesus. And those words have continued to change people's lives even now because they're so powerful and so deep and so valuable. Now, if I look at the transformative words that Jesus left us, I look at any Bible, and that's how much of the New Testament there is in the four Gospels. It's not even half an inch, unless you choose, the big print Bibles. It's not that much. If you add all the letters of Paul, then you get a little bit more. And those words, that amount of profound words, have been changing the world for the past 2,000 years, saving people's lives, making them live a different way. Now, I would ask you, how much have you been left with? We've got the DP, we've got 15 volumes of Hunduke, we've got Chunsung Young, we've got peace messages, we've got videotapes, we've got so much. And when I was thinking about joy, and the prayer I liked this morning so much about the foundation we stand on, the gratitude we really have for what people have done for us, and then the responsibility to do what has been done for us, for others. There's a whole world out there. So then I began to think of what are the things then that do make me joyful. And I realized that one of the most consistent things that brings me joy in my life is sharing the word. Every time I give a good presentation or something, I feel afterwards that God is grateful to me. God is very grateful to me and for giving God a voice. And that is pretty much the height of joy in my life. There's one other thing, but I won't talk about it unless you're married. So, yeah, you got that. Okay. So I would ask him, what is Abanim left us? He's left us a lot. the Christians were being fed to the lions and burned at the stake and lived underground for a few hundred years afterwards. Where are we? Nobody's being, tortured like that. Actually, Abraham started a lineage. He has started a lineage, and this lineage is all around the world. And we have been given a word, a very precious teaching. So that's what I'd like to talk about. I was thinking, what is the thing that really gives me the joy? And I thought about it, and I realized I have a lot of things. But it all boils down to these things. What is the most joyful thing to me? And it comes down to chapter 1 and the 3 blessings. That's it. I almost didn't want to say that because as soon as, I was afraid that as soon as I said that, you would zone out. Because, 3 blessings is one of those again, But just bear with me. I want to talk about just hit a few points, just a few, that I feel are really meaningful to me. For example, the first blessing says that you feel the heart of God as your own, and feeling God's heart as your own, you would never do things to hurt God. Well, here's the amazing thing, is that in this movement, I've actually discovered the heart of God. That's something I never knew. All the years I was raised as a Roman Catholic, all the years that I renounced Catholicism, and I went to college and I studied Western philosophy and I got involved in Eastern philosophy, none of these things opened up the heart of God to me, the heart of God. But now, I understand that there's 3 hearts of God that are mentioned. The heart of hope and expectation, the heart of pain and sorrow, grief and sorrow, and the heart of pain and suffering. I didn't know about these 3 hearts, but now I know them. And the key to unification theory of education, says that the 3 hearts of God correspond to the 3 parts of the one principle. The heart of joy and the heart of expectation corresponds to the principle of creation. So, now that I understand that, the principle of creation, God creating the world, I really have a gut feeling. I would love to go back to school, and I would like to study the things I studied before. I would like to study about botany. I would like to study about astronomy. I would like to study about geology. I would like to study about all the natural sciences. Because knowing what I know now about creation, if I could study the natural sciences, and I could see the forming of the universe and how nuclear fission works and how the tectonic plates move around the planet and allow life to survive here, just everything about the natural sciences, that would be a very religious experience for me now. Knowing that God's love and God's creativity is behind the creation, God's love for us, for myself. Then it's also very important to me that I can understand the heart of sorrow from the fall of man. Before, and most of Christianity has this idea, that the fall was supposed to happen. All of the bad things in history were supposed to happen. The crucifixion of Jesus was supposed to happen. The Holocaust, other things like that were supposed to happen. But now I have these, and God the Father is sitting up there on his throne, watching all these things happen and saying, don't worry, it's all under control. I'm very pleased because everything is unfolding according to my plan. And if you don't understand my plan, just trust me. Everything is cool. So I had that image that God the Father is up there watching all these disasters happen, but feeling, don't worry, it's under control. Well, here, for the first time in my life, I'm told, no. When the fall happened, God was destroyed. Father even says, in one of his poignant teachings, he says that when God collapsed, somehow when he came back from being unconscious, the shock of what happened. This is a very, very different picture. This is something I can understand, something I never knew before about God. And then, this idea that everything's happening according to God's plan. I never knew about the heart of pain, the heart of suffering. I never knew that. That God was fighting, has been fighting non-stop from day one to reclaim this world. I never knew that, and now I do. So these three hearts of God, the divine principle opens up the door to me to a very different picture of God, a God who dreamed, a God who hoped, a God who had a terrible disaster happen in his life that destroyed everything. And then all of history is a telling, an account of God's battle, God's unending battle to get us back and to bring us back and for us to be one with him. That is the grandest of all epics. Lord of the Rings is nothing compared to that grand epic, the Odyssey. You know, all of these grand epics. This is the biggest epic of all, the grandest epic. Romance, tragedy, everything is in there, and it's true. It's the greatest cosmic story, so I'm really grateful to know that. It's amazing to be able to know that. Another thing about chapter 1 was pointed out to me in the seminary when I was studying with Dr. Sebastian Matchak, who was a Jesuit, not a blessed member, but he taught philosophy at St. John's University in New York, and then he would come to teach philosophy in UTS. And when he looked at divine principle, and he looked at unification thought, and he looked at victory over communism, he looked at this as a philosopher and said, you know, this unificationism is a very remarkable, that's a book he wrote called Unificationism, and this is what he said. The novelty of the unification philosophy and its application to Christian teaching lies first of all in its new ontology, the study of being, resulting from the concept of man. For unificationists, man becomes the starting point for our knowledge of the whole of reality. He becomes also a creature of supreme dignity, second only to God, and the relative center of the whole of reality, God being its absolute center. Now, this is something I didn't know either before I came to the church. 24 years on the outside, trying to be a good Catholic and failing, trying to study philosophy and trying to find answers. And the answers that very often I found in philosophy and anthropology and social sciences is that human beings are animals. We have this elevated opinion of ourselves, but actually we are animals, and we should stop thinking of ourselves as being special and noble and dignified. Just face it, we're animals. And a lot of people buy into that. I bought into that. When I looked at the news and I lived in New York City going to school, I saw all kinds of crime. And it made sense to me. So I had a really pessimistic view of the human race and the future of our race. But then I came into the movement, and here's a professor who's not a blessed member, and he's doing an objective assessment of our teachings and saying, you know what's remarkable about this unification is that it has such an elevated view of humanity, human beings, highly elevated. We are second only to God, but without God, we are the center of the universe. That was remarkable to me. I didn't know that. That's remarkable. It's a very, very different viewpoint than you are just an animal, wake up. Don't feel so proud of yourself. You're just a beast. So stop trying to act, like you're not a beast. Give in to your animal instincts and all of that. That's natural. That's human. This is saying something totally different, and it rings true inside my heart. We're very, very special. And then another thing is that the movement has not only given me a new confidence in the value of humankind, but it's also given me an understanding of my own personal value as an individual. This is on page 164 in Divine Principle. Every human being possesses a unique individual character. No matter how many billions of people are born on the earth, no two will ever have exactly the same personality. That is an amazing statement. Each person is God's substantial object partner who manifests a distinctive aspect of God's dual characteristics. Hence, that person is the only one in the entire universe who can stimulate that distinctive aspect of God's nature to bring joy. So what this is saying, and this is developed much more in unification thought, but it comes, the idea comes from page 164 in DP, and that means that, and many of you have heard me say this before, and it's mind-blowing to me that God has never conceived of someone like me ever before in history. And I'm a one-off design. There will never be anybody like me in the rest of, for all of eternity. I'm unique in the life of God. You know that even if you have 20 children in your family, or 10 children in your family, you can't just, well, I can afford to lose a couple because I got a bunch more. You know, the way you feel is that every single child you have is really, really precious in your life. They're irreplaceable. And what this is saying is that even though God may have billions of people, children for all of eternity, each one of us is irreplaceable in the life of God. Irreplaceable. I can't tell you how much that has meant to me in my life. It's an amazing thing to know that me with my flaws and me with my imperfections, still, there's never ever been anybody like me in the life of God, and there never will be either for all of eternity. That's really something. I'm really grateful for that. I get off on that. I really enjoy that. You know, so it helps me appreciate my individuality, be confident about my individuality, develop my individuality, and I know that as I do that, it gives great joy to my heavenly parent. You know, what father, what mother is not proud to see their kid really developing what's in them, the unique thing about them. The joy of the father, the joy of the mother is to see that kid become confident in what they are and what they have and what they do. That's the joy. So that's, yeah, I see parents smiling out there. They smile, yes! You know, so that's really important. Now, moving on to the second blessing. This is my favorite passage in the whole entire Divine Principle. The second blessing says, on page 30 in the Divine Principle, it says, the place where Adam and Eve become perfectly one in heart and body as husband and wife is also the place where God, the subject partner, giving love, and human beings, the object partners returning beauty, become united. This is the center of goodness where the purpose of creation is fulfilled. Here God, our parent, draws near and abides within his perfected children and rests peacefully for eternity. The place where Adam and Eve become perfectly one in heart and body, and you know what that means if you're married, is as husband and wife, is also the place where God, it's a center of goodness. The purpose of creation is filled in that oneness. And God, in that oneness, feels at home and can come into that relationship and be part of that, and draws near and rests peacefully for eternity. That's the potential of a blessed marriage. That's the potential of a blessed marriage. And you know, once again, you know, I don't often see it, but as I'm working towards becoming that, I enjoy it anyway. Even if I'm not completely there, just trying to get there really makes, you know, things better. Definitely makes things better. And that is something that I'm really enormously grateful for. Before the church, I had no faith in marriage. I couldn't understand why anybody would want to have children in this world, in this awful world. Then I come to something like this, and it hits me in my heart and in my mind. This is something very special. So this is something I'm really, really grateful for. I have one painting here that I really enjoy. It's from one of our New Jersey members, Benny Henderson. If you look at this painting very closely, you'll see that here, in this yang and yin symbol, is actually the face of a man and the face of a woman. There's the woman's face. There's her nose, her eyes, her hairline, her chin, her throat. Here is the throat of the fella, his chin, his lips, his nose, his eyes, his hairline. And that oneness, that yang and yin, that beautiful oneness, that oneness, that is the place that God cherishes and loves and can be there for all of eternity. The peaceful place. That is what is being held out to me in a blessed marriage. Okay, that I can try to do. You know, I like that idea, you know, and I'm really grateful for that. I realized as a New Yorker, I was such a cynic and such a pessimist. But why I remember hearing, if you scratch the skin of a really bitter pessimist, what you will find underneath is a frustrated idealist. And I realized that's what I am. I'm an idealist. I'm a frustrated idealist. And then here I'm given an ideal. I'm given a picture of an ideal. I'm given the means to attain it in a way that I never thought I could before. So, am I grateful? Yes, I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that. And then when you multiply, then other good things happen too. In the lineage, each one of us in our lineage, I hope, and especially as we have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, that our lineage will be able to inherit and enjoy things with each other. Because of this ideal of the family and the generations and the lineage that has been given to me, I have an experience doing music with my son. Now, I'm not trying to hold this out as an example, but the thing is, think of the things that you enjoy doing with your own children. When they're little, maybe coloring books, or when they're older, going skiing with them, or watching, watching football games. I don't know, whatever you do, or playing sports, volleyball with your own kids, whatever it is. There is that also, that whole other dimension of joy and love. Am I grateful for that? Yes! Yes. I can't tell you what it feels like to be able to do something, music together, a joint offering with my son. Third blessing. Third blessing, I'm really grateful for the fact that it's clarified to me that, that each person is given gifts by God. And so then in order to develop those gifts, each person needs to have physical education, technical techniques in the area that they're gifted in, whether it's music or mathematics or law or any of these things, medicine, whatever the gift is. And then we need intellectual education, so social studies, social sciences, learning about the world, learning about the art, learning about the cuisine, learning about all kinds of things that people have done, their music, their dances. All of these things go into making a whole person. However, the field that you choose varies depending upon that person's preferences and aptitude. So then this gives me a picture. I began to realize, okay, I have certain gifts in my life, certain gifts that God put in me, certain talents that God gave me. So I need to develop those things. And I started doing this maybe when I was about 40. But the thing is, even though I get started late, at least I understand now. I have the conviction that every child that's born to us is gifted in some way. Every single child that is born to us is gifted in some way. And what is my responsibility then as a parent, and especially as a grandparent? It's to help the kid find the gift that's inside them. I know it's there. God put it there. God does not make mediocre children. God makes each one special, as much as God can do with what we bring to Him. God does His best with the raw material that we bring to God. And some of our raw material is a little bit really raw, So He has to work with that. But anyway, the thing is, He puts into a child gifts and uniqueness and special things. So my responsibility as a parent, as a grandparent, is to be sure, to know that there's something inside you that is unique for all time, that God put in you. So my responsibility is to help you find what that thing is and help you get the training that you need in order to really blossom so you can dominate, so you can fulfill the third blessing in your profession, in your career. So I'm really grateful for that. I have an idea of what, as soon as that kid is born, poof, there it is. Okay, I'm zeroed in like a laser. I know this kid has a destiny. I know this kid has the gifts to succeed in that destiny. So I have to, what's my responsibility? Find out what it is and get the training that kid needs to be able to excel. So those are just, I'm just rattling off quickly these things about the three blessings. Now, the reason in closing, the reason I brought out those things is that, like I said, my joy comes from sharing the treasure that I've been given. And this is what Almanin wants. This is what Almanin want. They don't want people to think, oh, I have a nice guest, or my aunt or my nephew is ready to hear something. I need to find a lecturer and a lecture hall and a venue to bring them to. That's not what Almanin wants. That's not what God wants. That's not what Almanin wants. They want us to be able to sit down with somebody in Dunkin' Donuts, pull out the placement, pull out the napkin, and draw a little 4-position foundation and first and second and third blessing. How many times have we heard that in our life? Think about it. And those three blessings pretty much are the core of, really the core of DP. You You can certainly share those. We can certainly share those. So that's why I chose these other things that Albanim said. Albanim is saying, Albanim is saying, please get the word out. And Albanim is saying, you don't need a special lecture and a venue and an event to get started at least with someone you care about, with someone who's having a bad relationship, who's having a tough marriage issue, or having some, not knowing what they want to do with their life. You have enough to get them started and give them a vision which can really help. See, so that's the reason I chose these readings. Is that our first sermon of the year was to proceed with God. Our second sermon was when you proceed with God, you experience joy. And I'm saying, let's expand that joy. Let's expand that experience of joy with the people we know, the people we work with, the people we care about. Sometimes I would get on a long, long bus ride, and then I would pray to God and say, Heavenly Parent, please, I have an empty seat next to me. Please don't let me don't let somebody sit there who's really nasty, and really not interested. But please, let someone choose this seat who has a question in life, who has some difficulty that I have an answer to. And sometimes I would get somebody sitting next to me, and we would get into a talk on this long, trip across the United States. And then out would come the paper, out would come the paper, out would come the pen, and then I start drawing, fruitful, multiply, achieve dominion, and the fall, how the first blessing was broken. And people get off the bus and they want, can I stay in touch with you? Yes, you can. Can I have that napkin? Yes, you can. You can absolutely have that napkin. So it's all, at least those things are in us. That's what Albanim wants to do. That's what God wants to do. Is use you. Speak the things that you know and put the word out there. And I really feel that that's what's going to make our movement last for 2 millennia, 3 millennia, 4 millennia, 5 millennia. Just as Judaism and Christianity and Confucianism and any of the great teachings have influenced millennia afterwards. So, let's go into this year with God, but not just holding on and being asked, lead me. No, what God is asking, what Albanim is needing, he said, it is accomplished. But we now are the builders, and our children are the builders, and our grandchildren will be the builders. So let's value what we have and let's get it.